Hey everybody, it's me, Remy, the comic book poser, and I'm here to welcome you to Enter the Poserverse. Today, we're going to talk some comic book news that I've got 5 stories planned for us to look at today, and hopefully they're not the same things that you're hearing everybody talk about everywhere else. Story comes from ICV2, which is where I tend to look for a lot of my comic book news. This article is by Milton Gripe. The first bit of news is that TKO Studios has signed with Ingram Publishers to help kind of strengthen their distribution network of books. That I think this is a good thing that a lot of us got into TKO during the COVID crisis, where they were selling products and they were sending 50% of what they made to your local comic book shop, which was kind of cool. I know when I went into my LCS last Wednesday that Jason was unboxing trades and the box sets of several of the TKO stories. So I think increasing, their publication reach by using another book distributor could be something that is helpful. The second story I want to talk about today, a lot of you have probably heard that Free Comic Book Day is now like Free Comic Book Summer, that if you go check out the freecomicbookday.com website, you can see all of the books that you can find kind of sprinkled throughout the rest of the summer. And there are a lot of interesting titles that are popping up throughout the summer. So there's some heat in My Little Pony. I talked a little bit about the X-Men title that's coming out on July 15th, that this is one of the first new stories in the Free Comic Book Day edition that's going to set the stage for the X of Swords event, which I'll talk about, I think, in like 2 more stories. There's some Captain Canuck. It's the same kind of assortment of just wild, all over the place titles you get. Here's a Valiant with a Vin Diesel Bloodshot cover, which I think could be cool. I didn't hate the movie. Here's a Dark Arc one-shot that I think could be good, and it's Bun and Doe from the first series that I liked so much. You can kind of flip through and see what kind of titles pop up that are interesting to you and when you can get them. Hey, I can get a Riverdale book on July 29. But there's a little bit of everything for everyone, as there tends to be in the titles that come out on Free Comic Book Day. So I would encourage you to kind of check out the freecomicbookday.com website to see what kind of things are popping up that you might be excited about. Story number 3, Marvel pushed back its X of Swords event during all the COVID stuff to make sure that the release of Empire and the X of Swords books aren't sitting on top of each other. And I've talked in other videos about why I like some of the things that were happening in the Empire lead-up books, that it's just an event that I'm not going to read, that I might pick up the 2 X-Men Empire books that come out, but I'm just not going to hop into the rest of that event. But they've announced publication dates for everything that leads into that event. So if you're a big fan of the reset, this dawn of X world that we're living in now, here they are. So Excalibur number 12, X-Men 12, both come out in September. Both of these books are preludes to setting up the crossover. So in times where we've talked about whether or not you need to be reading all of the offshoot titles to understand what's happening in the X-Men proper title, I haven't felt like that's been wholly necessary, but it almost sounds like, to be able to get into the X of Swords event, that this is going to be an event that is created for people like me who are reading everything. That X of Swords number 1 comes out in the end of September, and then X Factor number 4 has part of that X of Swords storyline woven into it. So the top of this article indicates that there are going to be 9 chapters coming out in October and 11 in November. So it sounds like, aside from the X of Swords book itself, that everything else is kind of being written into the existing titles. So it sounds like there's going to be a lot of large payoff for people like me who are actively consuming and excited about all of the goings on in the X-Men universe. So I'm kind of glad to see that, there's going to be a big story arc payoff there for me. And like I mentioned a second ago, you get the first tip of the hat to this story in the Free Comic Book Day X-Men book that comes out mid-July. 2 more comic book related stories, and then one for fun. From CBR, Noah Dominguez a couple of days ago posted an article that says that Alex Ross has some planned variants coming out in September that they're called Timeless Hero variants, and they kind of sing the songs of some of the big names that throughout the Marvel universe. So I'm just going to kind of scroll through this for a second, but there's a pretty cool looking Sue Storm Fantastic Four cover. There's Mr. Fantastic himself. I like that Thing cover. I think that's kind of dope. I also am wondering if there's a significance to the shadow kind of covering part of their faces. On the first three, there's a Silver Surfer, and I kind of like the double set of like reflectiveness that you get off of the cover. There's a She-Hulk. There's an Iron Man, and I really kind of like how you see the slit of the human eye through that instead of, like the screen, the light that we've become accustomed to seeing in either a lot of the books or in the MCU films. But I thought these were all pretty cool, and that while I may not be the world's largest variant chaser, I think this one is at least pretty exciting for me because it shows a lot of those kind of timeless heroes that will never be radically altered in the way their stories are told. The fourth story, also from CBR, this is an article written by Collier Jennings. I know when Hasbro put out the video last week for the Marvel Legends Deadpool head, I almost want to buy one of these, that they're only $99 for a Deadpool head that says like 600 different things. But apparently there's a number that you can call, 1-833-377-4323, and you can call the Deadpool head, which I think is kind of interesting. It's just weird. I like the Deadpool head. I'll link this article in the description of the video, because if you haven't seen the commercial for the animatronic talking Deadpool head, it's ridiculous. And am I more excited for the Deadpool head than getting the Jeff the Shark action figure from Marvel Legends? Would they look cool next to each other on a shelf? Yeah. But I think my wife would divorce me if I had a Deadpool head up here on the shelf. So that's it for my comic book news, but there's one more story that I found as kind of scrolling through CBR that at least is interesting to me. So I still kind of actively go through the random documentary phase of my life. And one of the documentaries that I really enjoyed was King of Kong, A Fistful of Quarters. And it was about Steve Wiebe, who was trying to set the world record for like highest score on a Donkey Kong game. And the real villain of this documentary is the guy that you see in this image, Billy Mitchel, who at the time held a number of video game records in Twin Galaxies, the kind of website that was the original scoreboard of video game high scores all over the place. And Twin Galaxies had strict reporting requirements of either someone watching you to verify the score, you see one of the Twin Galaxies referees watch something, or you could submit films in some instances to kind of clear a score. And one of the things that happens in the King of Kong documentary is that Billy Mitchell sends in a tape of a 1,000,000-point score, but it's very fuzzy and glitchy, and there were thoughts on whether or not he cheated to get the score. And a couple years after the documentary came out, there was a wide series of articles and a lot of press coverage about whether or not he used emulators to help create some of his more recent scores. And right, those emulators, you can cheat like hell. That's the only way that I beat one of the Ninja Gaiden games, is being able to save myself right before I'm about to kill a boss. And if I miss blocking his special attack, then I can just rewind back a couple of 30 seconds and be ready to go. So there was a big blow up on deleting his name from both the Twin Galaxies website and then the Guinness Book of World Records, their video game section, because they deferred a lot of their world records to Twin Galaxies, since Twin Galaxies had the infrastructure to deal with all of the reporting. So when his scores were eliminated 2 years ago, there was a big fuss. There was some lawsuits after both Twin Galaxies and Guinness dropped his scores. There were lawsuits on some of those scores in terms of his Pac-Man score, his Donkey Kong score, and when Twin Galaxies in 2018 vacated his scores, eventually through him kind of suing and throwing a fit, Guinness has decided to restate his high scores for Pac-Man and Donkey Kong. So I think that was kind of interesting. I clearly don't want to say anything ill about Mr. Mitchell, since he's, quite litigious. And even if I have a whole 12 people who will watch this video, I think it's interesting to see that you can threaten to sue and your video game scores will be restored. So, I mean, you do you, I guess. But that at least was an interesting non-comic story to me, but it popped up on CBR and I was like, I watched that documentary. I've Googled Billy Mitchell. I've read the stories from time to time when they pop up, and, at least he's stoked in my mind as a villain. So that's my news for the week. Hopefully you learned something new. If you want to, hit that like button. Give me a subscription. You can, be in the drawing to win this variant cover of Metal #1 when we hit 100 subs. So with that, thanks for stopping by and have a good one.